Diana, it's great to have you back. Thanks for kicking off the hour with us.
Pleasure. Great to be here.
I wonder how much of these dramatic losses coming out of the print do you think are actually reversible if they can demonstrate some tangible progress in this new growth area?
Look, I think so. I think when it comes to Meta, they are so well positioned with virtual reality hardware and having a captive audience ready to experiment in this space that I think they can turn the corner. But we can't underestimate the impact that TikTok has had on Meta. And I think they're going to be a voracious competitor for a long time for Zuckerberg to be fighting against.
And that $600 billion market cap level is an important one because it could help Meta escape some of that regulatory scrutiny or backlash. Does that shift on to others like a Google that has benefited so much from this Apple privacy move?
Well, I think there are a couple of things to unpack there. In terms of moving below that $600 billion cap, I think that's certainly helpful for Facebook. I do think perhaps there could be repercussions for Google. But what's so fascinating in this game around regulatory complexity, TikTok, which is, very much the thorn in Meta's side at the moment, was positioned potentially to avoid some of the issues that Meta was facing because it's positioned itself primarily as a content broadcasting platform, not as a social networking and connectivity platform. So I think the definitions here are really critical to unpack, not just looking at what some of the market cap thresholds might be. So it's going to be an interesting time to see this evolve.
Yeah, and you mentioned TikTok. I happened to be speaking yesterday to TikTok's Chief Operating Officer, Vanessa Pappas, and President of Global Business Solutions, Blake Chandley, as part of the Internet Advertising Bureau's annual leadership meeting. And Blake Chandley was talking specifically about how TikTok is differently positioned with some of these IDFA and iOS issues. Take a listen.
We made a decision right from the get-go that we were going to put user control first in terms of privacy. We kind of were watching all the different regulatory environments around the world, and it was, the writing was on the wall that there would be some changes, and the iOS 14 change certainly was a significant one by Apple, putting control in users' hands. But we believed that from the very beginning. We built all of our data and privacy policies and governance around users having more control. And we didn't have business models that were entirely or heavily dependent upon massive amounts of signals.
That's particularly interesting to me because Blake Chandley worked for Facebook for more than 14 years, one of the first international employees, knows the big brands really well. But I also wonder, as TikTok expands, will it have to get more signal outside the platform in order to scale? And how hard is it really going to be for Facebook to make the necessary tweaks given the billions of signals it's getting all the time from billions of users? I mean, might they be overplaying how bad this iOS change is going to be over the next year?
Well, what's really interesting is the way in which the signals have been monetized. So what has happened is a lot of the brands, for example, that I work with have struggled since those iOS privacy rules have kicked in because they're not able to measure in the same way as they used to the return on investment on marketing. It's super hard to track now the efficacy of your social media driven marketing campaigns. They're still critical, just harder to track ROI. What's fascinating to me about TikTok is they have really focused much more on trying to gather the data, not so much for external signal sharing, but for their own product development. And if you look at how their privacy laws, privacy policy changed last summer, TikTok really doubled down on being able to take biometric data from videos, see what you're looking at, see what you've got in terms of your own background when you're posting content to see what appeals to you. And they've done it very cleverly. So I think Meta is probably behind when it comes to figuring out that sophistication.